Chris Ash is back, coaching at Notre Dame, taking over as defense coordinator. We got to talk about what that means for Notre Dame, what that means for Ohio State, and why I think this is a really good hire for Marcus Freeman. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching the #1 college football show, welcome. Thank you for joining us here. We talk college football 24/7, 365 days a year. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button. It costs nothing. It's like a follow on TikTok or X or Instagram. For those of y'all that are uninitiated, it really helps YouTube understand that you like the show. And if you're a returning viewer and you still haven't subscribed, consider doing that. Like the video and answer the question in the comments below. Do you think Chris Ash is a home run hire for Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame? I think that this is a great hire for Marcus Freeman because A, you have a guy in Chris Ash who knows how to coach a defense that wins the national championship. We know this because he was co-DC at Ohio State in 2014 when Urban Meyer led the Buckeyes to that national championship. You also got a guy who's got some head coaching experience, Chris Ash being head coach at Rutgers. As his last stop didn't go so well, Greg Schiano took over. It seems like that's only a place where Greg Schiano can coach. It's only a place where Greg Schiano can win. Ash worked with also the last defense coordinator at Notre Dame in Al Golden when he was at Wisconsin. So you got a man that is very familiar with the Big Ten and recruiting that area as much as that matters today because high school football recruiting is all over the map now. But it doesn't take up nearly as much of your time as roster management. So knowing what you have, knowing what you're returning, knowing what you have recruited for, finding a guy that fits the scheme that you want to run, doesn't have to change a whole lot, but also can help you help him, Marcus Freeman being a former big-time college football defensive coordinator. I think this is a great hire. I think this is really going to be a lot of fun to watch. So now you got Mike Denbrock and Chris Ash on either side of Marcus Freeman as they try to run this thing back, and Notre Dame is up there as a team that we got to talk about having an opportunity to win the national championship if the CJ Carr era gets off to what I think is going to be a pretty good start. It also removes another defensive coordinator from the conversation that might be interested in the Ohio State job. Ash, who might have been looking at Penn State, might have been looking at Ohio State, ends up at Notre Dame. No telling whether or not Penn State and Ohio State were really pursuing Chris Ash, but I know that the Buckeye faithful had thrown his name out a couple of times because I've seen it down in the comments below and some other places that, let's say, where people work and do this for a living. But now it just seems inevitable that Ohio State's going to promote from within, probably go with safeties coach Matt Ierry, might be the defense coordinator, might be co-defense coordinator with Tim Walton, we'll see. Or Ryan Day could surprise us all and go get somebody who's not even on the radar. But knowing that Chris Ash is going to be at Notre Dame, you got to feel some kind of way if you're an Ohio State fan going, wait, our last two defensive coordinators that helped lead us to national championships are playing for are coaching coaching for teams that are direct threats to Ohio State repeating as national champions. Yeah, that's how this works. That's generally how this goes. You get poached. You get poached or you pay everybody. And one of the lies I think we tell each other after we meet the mountaintop is that we didn't actually need this guy to do it, or it wasn't worth the headache that this guy provided to try to give him a raise to keep him here. I always am I'm willing to overpay for experience and people that know how to work with me within the system that we have, because that chemistry, that value, that institutional knowledge, you're not going to be able to implement, right? So when you have an opportunity to promote from within, it's hard because I could just as easily see that going bad as I can see it going well. That's why I want to keep the staff the way that it is if I know that I got something that works. If I know I got something I can win with and we were just this much closer, that's what you got to do. That's what Penn State has done. They didn't want to have Tom Allen in the league, but they couldn't retain him either. They try to add somebody they think is going to help them. I'm curious to find out what Ryan Day does here. If he promotes from within, if that's what he decides to do. Let's remind ourselves that bringing back guys to Ohio State hasn't always worked. Jeff Hafley's doing just fine at Green Bay, but that's not what I was talking about. I was thinking about the guy that followed him and Kerry Combs. And then you need to get outside. You need to bring in a different scheme, a different philosophy, a different way of doing things and try to meld that with what you know you already do well, particularly Larry Johnson's defensive line. Now, it seems that Ash is going to plug and play for what Golden was doing. And I think that's a great move because you have put together a blueprint you know you can win with. And you know you were this close to being able to compete for the national championship. And you were in it until the second quarter, third quarter for sure, right? When it felt like it was getting out of hand. And you roared back. Roared back in large part because your defense turned out to be really, really good. Who was going to help put that thing into shape? And if that's how Chris Ash sold himself, I'm not surprised that he is the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. I also think that you're walking into a space where people are going to expect now for you to compete at a high level. And because Notre Dame does not play for a conference championship, it barnstorms for its away games, and it's going to play, a half ACC schedule-ish, but a high-profile schedule, you're going to have to win right away, and you're going to have to do it without guys like Xavier Watts in the backfield. I thought Xavier Watts was outstanding, man. Like, one of the 4 best safeties in college football, maybe 2, 3, depending on how you want to look at this thing. Because I'm thinking of Dylan Thieneman was great, just Purdue was not, right? Caleb Downs, unanimous All-American, he's top of the list. Xavier Watts is right there. I think that you can make some arguments here and there for other players at other places, but I guess it also depends on, do you think that Jahdae Barron is going to be a safety or a corner when he gets to the NFL? We'll see. I think that guy can play all those different positions. Ash is also going to have to identify players in a way that he hasn't had to. Remember, he's been out for a while. The game has kind of changed a little bit, but not that much in as far as what it means to be a play caller and what it means to go recruiting guys as a play caller. So I'll be watching how does he choose to run the defense, and knowing that the offense is going to be built around, yes, EJ Carr, but running the football with Jeremiah Love, and maybe, just maybe, taking a better advantage of Jordan Faison and Jaden Greathouse on the outside. Are you going to be one of these programs that likes to send guys? Are you going to sit back and let those come to you? You're losing guys like Jack Kaiser in the middle of that linebacking group, a guy that no crap played 70 college football games by the end of his career. So running a bunch of man is not necessarily what you want to do, but Ash might be able to do that. I think with him and Marcus Freeman coming together about what they want to do and what the overall philosophy's got to be, it's going to be fun. But mostly I think this is being able to do a 2-for-1. You are stealing from Ohio State and adding to Notre Dame, as opposed to maybe Ash was able to find a way back to Ohio State, and you're left with whomever is left out there to go get if you're Marcus Freeman. And I think there's always going to be a person out there that people are thinking about, but knowing that you're going to go into this season with at least one of your coordinators back is important, right? Both Penn State and Notre Dame get to do that on the offensive side of the ball. Remains to be seen if Ohio State gets to do that, and if Ryan Day has to change over both the coordinators and turn himself into something like Nick Saban to try to win this thing again. I don't know, man. It feels like a lot. Texas, they're going to be able to keep their offensive coordinator, this is Steve Sarkisian, and Pete Kwiatkowski, who I think is probably going to win the Broyles Award if the votes come in the way I think they're going to come in. This is what you're up against if you're Ohio State, and Notre Dame knows it. So Notre Dame and Penn State both at the margins, trying to push just a little bit farther to get where Ohio State has gone. Not the year after next, but right here, right now, with a hire like Chris Ash.